Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sapphire Bear Tavern. I hope you're all having a good day, and if not, maybe I can help you forget your troubles for a bit. Today we're finishing off the Sly Cooper series with Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, released in 2013 for the PS3. This time development went to Sanzaru Games. After Sucker Punch moved on to Infamous, Sanzaru Games expressed interest in continuing the franchise. After getting their hands on a PS3 development kit, they pitched a proof of concept for a fourth game to Sony. Before the game could be greenlit, Sony tasked them with porting the original trilogy to PS3. With that out of the way, the new team set out to create the next entry. While the game sold well enough and was generally well received by critics, it's the lowest rated game in the franchise, sitting at a 75 on Metacritic. Now, it should be noted that at this time, Sanzaru Games wasn't a well-known developer. The most noteworthy game in their catalog at that point was the PS2 port of Secret Agent Clank. Not exactly what you would call high profile. So is this a case of a new developer missing the point of what made the original game so great, or is it something else? Well, let's find out. Grab a drink, find a seat, and get comfy as we look at Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. The game opens with exposition. Don't worry, there will be a heist soon enough. Picking up after the ending of Honor Among Thieves, Sly is still pretending to have amnesia so he can continue his relationship with Carmelita. While things appear to be going great, Sly's old habits die hard, and he gets the itch to pull off a heist. After some research, he decides to steal from Cyril the Paradox, a museum curator that deals in stolen artifacts. Before he gets too far into planning, Bentley shows up with Murray and a couple of problems in tow. It's here the players are reminded that Bentley and Penelope were working on a time machine at the end of Honor Among Thieves. After some time, she disappeared without a trace. To make matters worse, Bentley discovered that the pages of the Thieves' Raccoonist were becoming unwritten. Luckily, he managed to get the time machine to work, so the gang can make the trek through time to uncover who's behind this and hopefully rescue Penelope, while also meeting several of Sly's ancestors along the way. After various time travel shenanigans, they discover that Le Paradox is behind the current scheme. It's revealed that his father was also a thief who tried to pull off a big heist, only for Sly's father to beat him to the punch and leave him holding the bag. This led to Le Paradox's current scheme of forging a royal lineage to increase his influence. Along the way, he steals the canes of several of Sly's ancestors to prove he's the better thief. Right off the bat, I can say the setup is awesome. Meeting several of the ancestors who helped shape the Cooper family into what it is, and pulling heists all throughout time, that has a ton of potential and sounds like enough of a shakeup to keep things fresh. It's also nice that when it came to the ancestors, most of them were mentioned in other games. Ryoichi and Tennessee Kid were referenced all the way back in Thieves' Raccoonist, while Sir Galth and Selim were shown via portraits during the final platforming section in Honor Among Thieves. The only outlier is Bob, who's a prehistoric caveman. I think it would have been better if they used Sly Tutankhamun Cooper, since he was the first recorded Cooper in the Thieves' Raccoonist. Minor nitpick, I know. Besides, that is the least of my issues with the story. Yeah, I'm not going to bury the lead. I think this is the weakest story in the franchise. Now, I'm not saying it's one of the worst I've seen overall. Rather, it's what I like to call a fine until you think about it kind of story. Let's start off with the wonky time travel elements that leave way too many questions. In the opening, we're shown the Thieves' Raccoonist becoming unwritten. Obviously, that means something is happening to Sly's ancestors, so they can't write down their exploits and techniques. If that's the case, then shouldn't Sly be under threat of disappearing as well? In fact, wouldn't that completely rewrite the timeline to the point where Sly's father doesn't exist, so that Le Paradox's father can pull off his heist without a hitch, thus removing Le Paradox's motivation for revenge in the first place? Come to think of it, Bob is revealed to be the first Cooper overall. Since his king gets stolen, wouldn't the Cooper line have ceased to exist altogether at that point? And finally, when you play as Sir Galth and Selim, they both have access to the Ninja Spire Jump. Thing is, canonically, the move was created by Ryoichi in feudal Japan. Meanwhile, Sir Galth and Selim lived in the early 14th and 11th centuries respectively. So how could they know the Ninja Spire Jump if they predate its creation by several hundred years? Yeah. Let this be a lesson to all you aspiring writers. If you're going to use time travel in your story, be careful. As you can see, it is very easy to mess up. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, as I don't think Le Paradox is a good villain. Sure, he's got enough money to fund his own private army, and he does recruit each of the other bosses to his cause. That said, we don't see him do anything particularly villainous. Clockwork hunted Sly's ancestor for centuries, and had a hand in killing his father. Neela was willing to betray everyone to get what she wanted, and the 5 boss fights against Dr. M show that he was both physically and intellectually opposing. Right up until the reveal, I get the feeling they were trying to go for a mysterious leader pulling strings, kind of like Blofeld in the James Bond series. Thing is, he's introduced in the opening cutscene, kind of undercutting the surprise. Also, did we really need another villain with motivations related to Sly's father? It's starting to get old. Hell, at this point, I'm starting to wonder if there's anyone his father hasn't pissed off. Speaking of getting pissed off, let's talk about what happened to Penelope. When the gang wind up in medieval England, they discover that Penelope has been working for the Paradox this whole time. And I'm not talking in a, I was brainwashed / forced to help him against my will kind of way. No, she's just evil now. When Bentley confronts her, she gives some excuse of how Sly was holding him back. All I can say is, excuse me? Where the hell is this coming from? From the brief glimpse we get in the opening cinematic, her relationship with Bentley seemed to be happy with no evidence to the contrary. Not to mention, she was a major player in the previous game, getting the gang out of several sticky situations, like when Mugshot assaulted their hangar, or when she fought LaFouille to save Bentley. To top it off, she briefly had a crush on Sly before getting with Bentley. This heel turn makes no sense. The only way I could see this working is if she was kidnapped by the Paradox, who then brainwashed or blackmailed her into helping him. That would have been more believable while making the Paradox seem like an actual threat. Instead, we get what feels like a middle finger to fans of the previous game. Alright, one last point before I move on. At the end of the game, the Paradox captures Carmelita for a second time and uses her as bait to trap Sly. The trap in question? Just have her sit in an open area all tied up. Despite her being in no danger and with backup not too far away, Sly walks over to her and falls into one of the most obvious traps ever. Now, I know a similar thing happened at the end of Thieves Raccoonus, however, there are 2 major differences. In that game, Sly was younger, less experienced, and encountering something like this for the first time. Not to mention, Clockwork had plenty of other traps like electrified nodes and pressure-activated dart traps besides the poison gas, which felt like a last resort instead of the whole plan. In fact, it makes Sly look worse since he already experienced this. Alright, despite all my criticisms, the story does have its moments. Carmelita finally comes around on Sly's thieving ways to the point of acceptance, and the scene after Penelope's boss fight has some great imagery as Bentley overcomes his trauma inflicted on him at the end of Band of Thieves. Hooray for character development! And the original cast come back to voice the thieving trio, which is a nice touch. That said, it's not enough to save the story. While I'm sure there are plenty of other issues I've missed, I think I've more than proven my point, so let's just move on. We're on the PS3 now, meaning the toon-shaded art style is now in shiny HD. And this is without a doubt the best looking game in the series. Animations are smooth, Banaki-com conversations and cutscenes are livelier than ever with characters having more movement, and the level design has seen a nice upgrade, feeling a bit bigger than previous games. Too bad this comes at the price of lengthy and frequent load times. I timed about 24 of them to see how long they take. Generally they last about 15 to 20 seconds, with a handful taking 30 to 40 seconds, and at least one that lasted a little over a minute. That's annoying on its own. What makes it worse is how often they occur. In the previous 2 games, whenever you picked a character, you played as them until you went back to the safe house to swap to another one. Here, you do missions one at a time, going back to the safe house once you're done. You pick a character, load screen. Get to the mission, load screen. Finish the mission, load screen. Rinse and repeat for every single mission. Yeah, it gets annoying fast. Thankfully, the moment-to-moment gameplay is still solid, with the structure and controls like they did in the previous 2 games. Though I will admit the formula is starting to get a bit stale. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just, this is the 3rd game in a row to use the same structure. There's only so many times you can do the same thing over and over before it starts to get stale. Not to mention, this is the first game in 8 years on more powerful hardware. I was kind of expecting something new. I mean, we kind of get that with the ability to play as Sly's ancestors, each with their own special ability. You'd think they'd sport unique abilities we've never seen before. In reality, most of them are just souped up versions of moves that Sly could naturally do. Ryoichi's Dragon Jump is the Ninja Spire Jump, but from a greater distance. Bob can climb sheer walls, something Sly could do with his cane and Band of Thieves. Sir Gal's Catapult Crash is just the Hook Jump, only it can break through objects. And Slim can climb poles and breakable chains fast, which is fine, but not terribly interesting. The only ancestor with a unique ability is Tennessee Kid with his crack shot. Granted, it's just Deadeye from the Red Dead games, but at least it's something unique. This leads to my favorite mission in the game, Blind Date. Here, Tennessee Kid has to rescue a kidnapped Carmelita who's been trapped in a runaway carriage. You slide along rails, dodging obstacles, get from one platform to the next, and from there you use the crack shot to take out enemies and explosives. It's fast-paced, fun, and does a great job of showing off what makes him unique. Easily one of the best missions in the game. Besides that, there have been a couple of improvements to the gameplay. The hacking minigame has been overhauled into 3 different flavors. The standard twin sticks minigame makes a return with the added wrinkle of using 3 different programs to progress. The shell code operates like a normal program and is the only one that can pick up keys to unlock doors. The panzer code is the slowest but compensates with increased firepower to smash pink crystals. Finally, the spirit code shots ricochet off walls and it can generate a laser trail to damage enemies as well as activate blue nodes when both ends connect. Definitely a massive step up from before. Up next is Alter Ego, where you control an 80s action movie's avatar of Bentley in a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. Not much else to say here. You fly around, blasting, and collect bits to eventually become ridiculously overpowered. Can't say how it compares to other games of the genre, but I had fun with these. The final hacking minigame, Spark Runner, has you guys spark to the end of the level before the time runs out. This is my least favorite of the bunch because you have to use the PS3's motion controls. I don't care for them because they don't feel as precise as the Wii's. Doesn't help that there are gaps in the floor and bumpers that'll send you ricocheting like a pinball. Props for trying something different, even if it wasn't a winner. Besides, there's only a small handful of them, and the other 2 variants more than make up for it. Disguises make a return, and they have been improved from the previous game. Instead of just blending in and only reciting passwords, they sport unique abilities. The samurai armor makes Sly impervious to fire and is equipped with a shield that can reflect projectiles back to the launcher. The jailbird gives Sly a massive ball and chain that can be used to smash weak walls, move certain crates, and can be stored on top to move faster. The saber-toothed tiger allows Sly to play dead to avoid detection and gives him a pounce attack to take out enemies that are at a distance and cross massive gaps. The archer lets him hit special targets to create tight ropes to new areas, and finally the thief outfit lets him temporarily slow down time and gives him a massive scimitar to take out enemies with. While they each get used in a couple of missions, you'll primarily use them to access new areas for treasure, and almost every boss fight requires their use to succeed, such as using the samurai armor to survive El Jefe's massive fire attack, or using the archer costume to reach and damage the weak points on the Black Knight. As for the boss fights, I don't have much to say on most of them. They're not bad, it's just there's nothing particularly interesting about them. The only thing that leaps out to me is the cutscene right before the fight against the Grizz, where he reveals his greatest passion in life is figure skating. I'm sitting there thinking, where is this coming from? Your backstory made you out to be Dimitri minus the charisma. Even Murray's confused by this revelation being all, okay. The only noteworthy fight is the final one against the Paradox, and it's for all the wrong reasons. It's just a string of quick time events broken up by some light platforming. There's no challenging your skills or how well you've mastered the game's mechanics, it's just press this button or mash this button to not die and occasionally jump. If you're going to use QTEs in your boss fights, then you need to do 2 things. 1, keep them to a minimum, and 2, use them to either do something the players couldn't normally do, such as dodging in the various boss fights in Resident Evil 4, or giving the player some extra spectacle when finishing off a boss, such as the Hydra fight in the original God of War. Don't make them the whole fight, it comes across as anticlimactic and lazy. The only cool thing here is the fight takes place while he and Sly hurl through time. It doesn't add much to the fight, but I appreciate the visuals. Once defeated, Le Paradox hangs off the edge begging Sly to help him up. Sly obliges, and is rewarded by Le Paradox stealing his paraglider. He's all, "I can't believe you fell for the oldest trick in the book! What a goof!" before escaping. His victory is short-lived as he's immediately hit by a plane, causing him to plummet into the water below. Somehow he survives, despite the fact they'd have to be at least several hundred, if not several thousand feet in the air to get hit by a plane. I guess he was rich enough to afford plot armor. I don't know. Regardless, he gets arrested, the ancestors all get their canes back, and the timeline returns to normal. Unfortunately, Sly has lost time as he had no other means to escape. The game ends with Bentley, Murray, and Carmelita vowing to find Sly and bring him home. Unless you got 100% completion. Then the game ends with a post-credit scene showing Sly stranded in ancient Egypt. There were plans to make Ancient Egypt a DLC chapter, but they got scrapped. As I said in the beginning, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time isn't the most well-regarded in the series. and after playing it for myself, I think I have a good idea as to why. The story isn't as good as the previous games, with wonky time travel and some questionable characterization. The frequent and lengthy load times are annoying. The Paradox is the worst big bad and the final boss in the franchise. Throw in a structure that's showing its age by 2013 standards, and I think that covers the main problems. Despite my criticism, I'd be lying if I said it was one of the worst games ever. The gameplay, while starting to show its age, is still as solid as ever. The graphics are a massive improvement, and there were a couple of tweaks like disguises having special abilities and the improved hacking minigames. Well, 2 of them at least. As for whether or not it's worth playing, I'd say if you're curious and find it for a reasonable price, sure, check it out. Otherwise, I wouldn't blame you if you pretended the franchise ended on the PS2. As for the future, well, there doesn't appear to be any plans for another game anytime soon. There were rumblings back in 2021 and 22 of a potential 5th game in development, but nothing came of it. The only good news is the original trilogy is available on PS4 and 5 via PSN. Now, I should point out that my reviews of the original trilogy are based off the original PS2 games played on an actual PS2. I have not played these ports, so play your own risk. Regardless, it's nice to see Sony hasn't completely forgotten this franchise exists. And if by some miracle we get another game, remake, or what have you, I'll probably review it. In the meantime, there are plenty of other games to talk about. For example, did you know the games industry decided we needed several first-person shooters with time travel elements during the 7th console generation? I didn't. So we're going to keep the time travel motif going a bit longer. Up first is Darkest of Days, aka the one you've probably never heard of. Is it any good? Well, come back next time to find out. Until then, thank you all for stopping by, and take care.